Okay, everyone, good morning. Welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. What day is it, Stevie? It is Wednesday, I think, the 2nd of October. Derek Clark is not here today, so me and Stevie Clifford here to guide you through your daily dose of the Rangers Review. Lots to talk about. Spoke briefly about the big news of yesterday being Yanis Hagi is back with the Rangers first team last night, but we'll get into a bit more of that today, so do get your comments in. But Stevie, first and foremost, how are you?
Okay, mate. I'm quite tired. I have been up since 7 with the kids this morning. So, yeah.
Early rise.
Yeah, 7 is never good to be up for, Joshua. So, It's going to be a long day ahead.
Great. Well, let's start it on a high note. We're going to talk about the big news, obviously, yesterday. Stevie, Yanis Hagi is back training with the Rangers first team. It's been something that's dragged on over the summer. It's certainly dragged on over the last couple of months. We broke the story last night that the two parties had effectively come to a resolution that has allowed Hagi to stop training and playing with the B team, where he has been since he came back from his place with Romania at Euro 2024. We'll get into some of the details behind that, Stevie. People obviously might have watched our live podcast last night. But just your reaction first and foremost. This was a situation that it was of no benefit to anyone, I guess, if Hagi was in the B team long term. Not him, not Rangers, so long as that resolution could be reached. And Philippe Clement kind of gets a player now in an area of the pitch where he's quite light on options. I was a bit surprised that it happened this week. You know, these talks have been ongoing in the background, but just your reaction to it first and foremost. My take was kind of, you know, it's a good player. I don't think he's going to become Rangers' most important attacking player, but he's a good player and a good option in an area of the pitch where Rangers don't have enough options to turn that down. Do you kind of tend to go along with that thinking?
First impression, Joshua, was one of surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't see this coming. Philippe Clement has put himself in a corner with regards to Yanis Hagi. He was very specific when he spoke about at the press conference that he had decided that Yanis Hagi wasn't his number 10 now, short term or long term, and that he would be better for everybody if he moved on. I'm not sure what's changed in the last few weeks for Philippe Clement to suddenly want Yanis Hagi to be part of his squad. Those are questions I would put to him today. Hopefully I will get to put to him today. So that was the main thing, because, you know, he made it perfectly clear that he wasn't part of his plans. So suddenly to have that role reversal yesterday was interesting. And then you get the reports, which naturally will come, saying the decision's been forced upon him and things like that. And these are all things that I think it's worth putting to the manager and asking him to clear up. So it's interesting, but definitely surprising. As for Yanis Hagi himself, I've said all along, I'm not sure that he has got the quality that we're looking for in terms of that position. Is he quick enough? Does he have the ability since his injury? I'm not too sure. So Yanis Hagi, for me, yeah, he's an option. I'm not sure whether or not he's the best option to have. And I said it during the summer, so I'm not going to change my stance on that. Am I pleased that he's at least back available for selection? Yeah, sure I am. Absolutely. And will I be willing to give him a chance and see what he's going to do when he comes back? Absolutely I will, and you'll get behind him. But I'm just not sure that it's a game-changing move or anything like that. You know, Yanis Hagi is Yanis Hagi. But I'm not sure. I'm just not sure, Joshua, that he'll make a huge difference to the squad overall.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, as we understand it, is this, Stevie, that you're right. You can't rewrite history. And whether that be, you know, Hagi made those public comments back in, I think, June, it might have been July, where he said it was up to his agents effectively where he played next season. And he wasn't exactly committing his future to Rangers, I think it's fair to say. But then similarly, Philippe Clement on 1, 2, 3 occasions went pretty black and white with it. You know, he didn't kind of keep it open and say, you know, something going on in the background, we'll see what happens. It was a very concrete kind of black and white. I remember asking him in, I think it was in Lublin for the game against Dynamo Kyiv, and asked him if Hagi was part of his plans, and he just said no. It went on to expand a little bit, but you're right, it was a pretty black and white answer. The situation obviously has changed since then. Rangers needed to try and get players out the window players out the door towards the end of the window. That held up a lot of their summer, and you only need to look at the fact that Proper arrives right after Goldson, Cherney right after Lammers, the final day of the season. It's Barami right after Cantwell, Casemiro right after Scott Wright left the club as well. So there was obviously a concerted effort to try and get Hagi and amongst others out the door to bring that wage bill down, to get some money and to reinvest it in the squad. That hasn't happened, and we understand that since then the contract difficulty, which was holding up Hagi getting into the first team, and we don't believe that was to do with a payment to Genk, that there's been a resolution and maybe a little bit of a changing attitude on both sides, because the situation is different now to a couple of months ago. You can't, the transfer window isn't open. You can't get him out the door until January at least, and even if you are then trying to sell him, he's not a very valuable asset in the B team, is he? So I think the situation has changed slightly, but you're right, Stevie. Clement has been pretty black and white on this in the past, so it's going to be interesting to see what he has to say. And I guess, to put it back to you, it probably puts quite a lot of attention on and Hagi's used to attention given his name, but it puts probably quite a lot of attention and focus on his performances if and when he does play in upcoming matches.
Yeah, well, but I mean, there's always focus on Yanis Hagi, so I don't think that'll affect him either way, as you said, with his name and the pressure that comes with being who he is. That focus is always on him. I think something you said there is quite interesting. If Yanis Hagi has went to Rangers and said, "Look, I've not handled this well in the summer. We've got a situation here where I'm maybe due X, Y, Z. I'm willing to push that to the side because I really want to play for the club and I want to get back in the team, and then we can reevaluate this in January, the summer, and see how all parties are feeling. But I'm here and I'm ready to give 100%, and I really want to play." That kind of changes my outlook on it slightly, because then you've got somebody that's willing to say, "Yep, didn't handle the summer that well." Maybe the club have said, "Well, we've maybe not." It's been a mutual coming together for the best of everyone, which is to try and get Yanis Hagi fit, playing, make him either a sellable asset or an asset to the first team. Then I can get behind that and I understand that, and that's for the best of everyone. It's whether or not I truly believe Yanis Hagi is good enough. And you've always got that question mark, because he's been horrendously unlucky with injuries, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And that injury did take so much out of him, Joshua. So, but I will say, if you put Bayrami, Cortez, Cherney, Dessers, people around him that may be better players than he's played with maybe under last season. You know what I mean? When he was shipped out by Michael Beale, he played pre-season. He's got a better opportunity of making an impact now. I do believe that our squad is in a better place than it was last season, although it's younger and inconsistent and things like that. It will take time. But maybe if you put Yanis Hagi around these players, we might see better from him. Technically, look, we know technically he's a very good player and he can strike the ball, but whether or not he's got the pace and things, that's always been my kind of doubt around him. But if there has been, and that's what the manager will be asked upon today, because it's going to be about Yanis Hagi, so he's going to be asked to clear up his comments and things like that. I don't like the idea that this has been pushed on him, Joshua, which is an angle that has been said, and I think that needs clarity. And let's just see, overall, you're pleased that he's back involved in that situation for the club is out the way, because it done nobody any favours when you didn't get a good performance and it's Yanis Hagi this, Yanis Hagi that. So, and honestly, Yanis Hagi would have been a good option on Sunday from the bench or something like that as well. So, come Sunday night against St Johnstone at home after a really difficult Thursday night against Lyon, is it good to have Yanis Hagi available for selection? Then I'd be wrong to say it's not. So, we've kind of got to where we should have been in the summer by default. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Let's get some comments. John Brown saying, good news on Hagi back in the fold, like a new signing of a quality player, like a new signing on the footballs. Great cliches like that from John. Kenneth says Hagi needs to be playing so Rangers can sell him in January. Ryan Thompson, the biggest challenge ahead is squad depth. Gaining another option in midfield in the form of Hagi makes total sense. While he is on the wage bill, he's a better option than Kieran Dowell. And just finally, kind of what you're suggesting there, comment saying we struggled middle to front against Hibs. Hagi is good with both feet and could make the difference against those types of teams and set up. And finally, Stephen saying it'd be interesting to hear what Clement has to say, similar to what you're saying there, Stevie, about Hagi being available. Got to give Hagi a huge amount of credit for his professionalism, especially after being dumped into the B team. And I guess just finally on Hagi, Stevie, I agree with you. It's an option. I don't think that if you look at what Clement had to say, his comments were, I don't think he's going to be the long-term number 10 over the next couple of seasons. If you take it back to his best season at Rangers, it was when Rangers won the league, and obviously the team was in a better place. He scored a few kind of match-winning goals, a few important goals, had that really bad injury the season after. He wasn't starting and playing in every single game then. The system arguably suited him a little bit better because he could play in either one of those kind of withdrawn number 10 roles or play as a number 8, more advanced number 8 at points. Under Van Bronckhorst, he was consigned to the wing a little bit more. Didn't really play that number 10 spot. If memory serves me, it was more Joe Aribo in there. And there has always been this question, especially after his injury and suffering such a serious knee injury, when he effectively missed a year and a half of football because he didn't really play that much when he came back towards the end of Michael Beale's first season at the club. There's always been this question about pace, about dynamism. Can he cover big spaces? And if you look at one of the things that Rangers have tried to do in this summer window is give Clement more players who are suited to his style of play, who can cover big spaces on or off the ball. Someone like Chefty is the player that I'm banging on about in that regard. But I guess just finally on Hagi, Stevie, he's an option, someone that maybe he can play off one of the sides, give you another option off one of the wings. And that's an area where Rangers don't have a lot of depth or quality at all at the moment. Can you rely on Cortez and Matondo staying fit throughout the course of the season? You'd have to say not yet, not at this moment in time, because neither of them have been able to play consistently. Tom Lawrence, again, he's playing a lot at the moment, but do you want to rely on a player without much cover there if Barami has to play on the left, given that Lawrence hasn't, again, I think it's 90 minutes he managed last season and 4 or 5 the season before when he had that kind of injury-ridden first season. So he maybe doesn't give you the game-changing player in that number 10 position that's going to start every game. You know, Rangers have signed Barami there, and that's where he should, in theory, play once the injuries resolve himself. Or if Chefty's playing on the left, then at least Barami can move inside. But Hagi does give you a little bit more depth in an area of the pitch that if you're looking at Lyon tomorrow and you're looking at St Johnstone at the weekend before the next international break, it is a bit light in there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And listen, if we're being entirely fair to Yanis Hagi, and no disrespect, it's not like Tom Lawrence or Kieran Dowell are the most quickest or athletic players that were used in that position as well. And arguably, and I'll put this forward for Yanis Hagi, arguably he's a better striker of the ball and he's better technically than those two guys. So I just think it's a wee bit disingenuous for me to sit here and say, delighted to have him back in the squad. I think he's going to be a game changer when all summer I've kind of advocated for the fact that he was free to go. So I'm pleased he's back in and amongst it. Yeah, I think that's understandable. Does he add that wee bit more options to the squad? Undisputably, yes, it does. Does he have a long way to go before kind of convincing me? Somebody spoke about his professionalism, Joshua, in the B team and that. Yeah, granted, that's absolutely correct. But was he behaving absolutely professionally during the summer? I'm not sure. So there's still question marks for me over Yanis Hagi, and there was question marks the summer before when Michael Beale put him out, you know, and so he's got a wee bit to go to convince me that he is, you know, the answer or whatever. But it's certainly good that the situation's done, and there's a lot more answers to get before I'm completely settled on where we are.
Yeah,
it'll be good to speak to the manager today. I don't want to sideshow Lyon because that's the big thing.
Yes, yeah.
But on the Hagi thing, I think given the comments that have came from both parties, it would be nice to get a wee bit more, not clarity as such, but get a wee bit more of a kind of explanation or discussion surrounding him with the manager.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger story today than Lyon, but we'll of course get on to that. And just finally, John Turner saying, could Hagi play Could he be effective? Sorry, a little bit deeper. And it's probably an interesting point, because if you look at how Lawrence is playing, Stevie, and we covered this on the website a couple of days ago, if you look at where Lawrence is getting on the ball, Clement's number 10 this season is running, I would say, towards the ball more than always staying close to the striker. I felt like last season, and Todd Campbell kind of alluded to this in his interview when he joined Blackburn. He kind of said, I have a lot of respect for the manager, but effectively, and I'm paraphrasing here, but effectively said, but the tactical setup didn't suit me. And if you think to this time last season, there were so many games where, or a number of games where Campbell is a player who wants to move to the ball, and under Beale he had that freedom. You know, he wasn't kind of positionally restricted, and then it felt like Clement wanted him to stay close to the striker, get on the end of second balls, stay high up the pitch to start quick attacks instead of moving deeper. But then it seems like this season that midfield setup's changed a little bit, and maybe Rangers are becoming a little bit more patient, a little bit less direct, which they had to, because last season at points we were so direct to their own detriment. So maybe just finally, Stevie, that could, if Hagi does play in that role, suit him more than it would have last season, because he can move towards the ball, as we maybe have seen Lawrence do in the last few games, dropping in next to Conor Barron.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think it would be wrong to say that Yanis Hagi doesn't have the talent to do that. I've said technically he's very good. He's a good striker of the ball, and he certainly can get numbers. Mm-hmm. Joshua, we've seen that, and I would need to go back and properly look at it, but I'm pretty sure in the championship winning side, he got 15 goal involvements.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it would have been around that number, because I remember there was a kind of purple patch that him and Kamar Roof went on between kind of October and Christmas time, where Yanis Hagi was quite involved. And he's more than capable of getting numbers and popping up, and like you say, he didn't start every game then either.
No.
Perhaps if he's playing a kind of peripheral role where he's in and out and he's adding that, then yeah, it can work. Does it suit him more the way that that we're set up now? Yeah, I think it could. So I have my doubts. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah,
and it's not a critical thing of like I don't like Yanis Hagi or stuff like that. I think probably I've just consigned that part of it to be done. So because I've said to myself, you know, he can go in the summer and things like that, for it suddenly to become an option, I just feel like I've got a wee bit of convincing to do before I'm fully on board. But look, it's good that it's sorted. It was huge news for you to break yesterday, Joshua. It was good to read it. It was good that it's sorted. I think that the new player kind of thing is a cliche, but what I would say is that Yanis Hagi is quite enthusiastic and could be quite an infectious person to suddenly have back around the team and pushing and becoming another option. So let's see how it goes.
Yep.
He's technically very capable. The system that we're playing at the moment, moving the ball around possession-wise, him playing closer to Cyril Dessers and things like that might suit absolutely. And he's got, somebody said, could he play deeper? I'm not sure that he could next to kind of Conor Barron and what the job that Mohamed Diamande does. I think when you look at Sunday and how lack of control that we had in that midfield especially, I think Mohamed Diamande is one of these guys that when he's not there, you really miss what he does. So who would you take out for Yanis Hagi to play deeper? Because it wouldn't be Mohamed Diamande and it wouldn't be Conor Barron. So Yanis Hagi's playing for the 10, or he's playing for a wide position, which is not really suited for him. So he's effectively playing for one position. But with you saying that rightly, Cortez and the left-hand side, Matondo, you could say arguably, you're maybe not going to see them for 6, 7, 8 weeks or whenever it's going to be. And then Bayrami's going to have to play out there. So that leaves your playing position short, like you pointed out. So him to be in amongst that and things like that is definitely a good thing, Joshua.
Yeah, and it's the dynamics around the player as well. But I guess if you've got Chefty being the high and wide player on the left, then maybe that allows Hagi to play narrower from the left, as we've seen Barami do. Or we shall see. Let's move on, Stevie, because more to discuss. Dujon Sterling also signed a new contract yesterday, an extra year on the 4-year contract that he signed last summer, taking him up to 2028. That contract is thought to be more reflective of his role in the squad now as compared to the role he kind of signed up for last season, which was a challenger right back and very much a second in command. We all know what happened last season, the number of roles he played. He's not been without his injury difficulties, but very much is seen as a key player who now, as he said himself, needs to kick on yesterday, Stevie. I saw some comments saying, why is he been given a new contract now? He was already in a 4-year deal. As far as I'm concerned, there's two elements to this. Number one, when a player comes into a club and they do make a big impact, and I know Sterling hasn't made a big impact so far this season, maybe in certain games, but he's not started a ton of games. But last season, he could very justifiably argue that the kind of terms and conditions he signed up to had changed. He was fulfilling a much greater role in the squad and was one of Rangers' most important players towards the end of last season, and did it in a number of different positions, whether it be playing on the right wing in some Old Firm games or covering at centre-back. He's a player who had to take on a lot of responsibility. And secondly, you're protecting an asset because he is a player. I think everyone would say that if things can click, if he can play consistently, if he can play consistently in one or two positions, then he is someone who should have a really high sell-on value down the line, not least because of the potential he's had early on in his career, and he's maybe started to realise a bit at Ibrox, and you're protecting an asset there because next summer it'll be 2 years, and we've seen Rangers consistently get into this position over the last number of years, haven't we, where suddenly before you know it, a player is going from 2 years to 1 year, and then before you know it, they're running down their contract. So I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a sign of squad management being done better, but interested to get your thoughts on the news as well.
Yeah, pretty much what you said there. I've got to be honest, when I seen contract and things like that, I thought at first it was going to be John Souttar because we're expecting that to be kind of close and expecting that to be announced at some point. When I seen it was Dujon Sterling, I was pleased. I wasn't sure of his contract situation, so I had to go and look at that. But when you kind of outline what you did there, and with regards to the summer being 2 years, and then all of a sudden it starts swinging towards player power, Rangers have acted quite smartly. He is definitely somebody that they're going to look to sell on. He is English, so he has that kind of homegrown appeal for teams down south that might be looking for a kind of utility squad player that could kick on. So in terms of an asset, he's definitely that. But we would want him to kick on, wouldn't we? We don't want to think about selling him. You want Dujon Sterling to be able to be that powerful midfield dynamo when he plays in there. At points this season, he's maybe looked slightly lost in there. I don't think he covered himself in glory the games that he's played this season. He's had little cameos here and there where he's been okay, Joshua, but I think he's maybe struggling for a consistency. I would like to see him start at right back and get a run of games at right back till we figure out where he is.
Agreed.
And, we might have to wait for that. And I think Rangers have maybe just earmarked that as being, this is where you're going to play. You might have to wait a wee bit longer for that to happen. But I think we should be definitely looking at, him being there. He needs to also get fit and stay fit for a considerable amount of time because, he does pick up a lot of knocks, Joshua, which is maybe overlooked slightly because he is a bit of a favourite. But it's definitely good news. He's a powerful player. He's a player that I like. He's a player that gives everything. He's a wee bit short on form, right? But it doesn't make him a bad player in my books. It doesn't make him somebody that we're looking to do X, Y, and Z with. So I also read yesterday, I'm pretty sure that I read yesterday, he's now in the kind of leadership group of the squad, which is interesting after a guy that's only been there a year. So he's obviously got a presence behind him and a drive in the dressing room that people appreciate. For him to be voted into that kind of leadership group and be a voice for the players is a very interesting one because he's still young, isn't he? What is he, 24?
About to turn 25, I think, this month. So he's kind of reaching that. He's still, maybe not regarded as a senior player, but he's getting into that mid-range player where he's one of the more experienced voices in the dressing room. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's still a big thing for somebody of that age to be going, in that position. So it's definitely good news. Slightly surprising news, but when you outline it like you did and why they've done it, it's a really positive thing. And if that's how Coppin and Clement are going to manage these kind of things, then it's a positive because we're not going to get, how many times as Philippe Clement said about 6-7 players walking out the door for nothing. So he's obviously got an eye on that. You know what I mean? He's obviously got an eye on that. So let's try and avoid that and do the whole side of it better, which they've clearly demonstrated. There's a few more I'd like to tie up a wee bit longer as well. John Souttar being one of them. I think John Souttar recently has been very, very impressive, Joshua.
Yep.
He has defended really, really well. Is he infallible? No. But I think his levels have went up.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's maybe starting to get a bit of a partnership with Proper. He's starting to be comfortable. He's looking better on the right-hand side. So let's get him tied up. He's Scottish as well, which is obviously important for our quota and things like that. So he's the next one I'd like to see tied up on a new deal. And then we can, go from there. I'm not saying that John Souttar necessarily has to be first choice week in, week out, but he's certainly playing well enough at the moment where we should be looking to give him an extension.
It's definitely the best kind of few games in a row. Up to this point, there's always been a bit of a mistake, or I felt that he's always been he's misjudges a high ball or a header, and you've probably seen the benefits of just. It's actually interesting comparing this to Sterling, because Souttar has played on the left-hand side of a back four, which, he's not a player that uses his left foot ever. And if you think back to some of the mistakes he's made, whether it be Kilmarnock on the opening day of last season, it's trying to go for a ball on the left-hand side with his right foot kind of that gets stuck under his feet. And there was a number of mistakes that I think you could put down to, and maybe at times he's quite a full-blooded player and he does misjudge crosses and he does get stuck under the ball, but also he's playing on his weak side and he's not got the consistency of playing on his strong side. Over the past 4 games, he has been playing in his favoured position on the right side of maybe a back three as well, allows him a little bit more room to step out, but he's been playing on the favoured side of defence because he's not a left-footed player at all, and also he's got someone in Robin Proper, and if you compare how Proper interprets that left-sided role, you will see him use his left foot, you will see him play balls with his left foot into the striker, and while he's not left-footed, he does have a good enough left foot to get Rangers out of trouble. If you compare that to someone like Dujon Sterling, he's not had any consistency whatsoever, and I think at points that's been to his detriment, where he's consistently covered in different areas, and people probably underestimate how difficult that is, but there's a reason that it's kind of become a meme, because it's not that common for a player to be able to play, as an advanced attacker in some Old Firm games and as the last line of defence in other Old Firm games. So there's the question, Stevie, about, I thought Clement was really good away at Malmo last week, and you could see that he's quite a natural, probably inverted fullback. He's played centre-back as well. I think at points that Souttar and Proper partnership lacks a bit of pace and could do with one of those two players in there. So I think Clement probably needs to manage this quite cleverly, in that he needs to give Sterling consistency. I agree with you. I'd like to see him at right back. I think it makes sense for a number of reasons that we've outlined before, so we won't go into that old argument all over again. So do you think that could be the case then, that Sterling plays right back sometimes, and then when he doesn't, he maybe goes into the midfield in games that suit him, not games that are asking him to open up defences, but games that are a little bit more end-to-end? And then could Clement become the kind of utility player who covers a number of different positions? And then that maybe means that Sterling doesn't have to get moved about from game to game, and he can achieve that consistency, which should help his performances.
Yeah, but I also think that, with regards to the midfield thing, Conor Barron's actually doing what he did so well, because he was the aggressive ball winner. He was the guy that closed down. He was the guy that kind of shuttled about and done the easy, simple passes and got the team going. All of a sudden, Conor Barron's doing that. If you look back at his League Cup win, last December, when he was man of the match, he did a lot of what Conor Barron is doing now. So I think, perhaps focusing him on that right side is basically where he should be. I think that he's good enough to get a consistent run there. So, as you said, there's no point going down that rabbit hole at this moment in time with discussing whys and where. But on Clement, I really like the look of him. Now, he came on for the last, I'd say 7, 8, 9 minutes or whatever it was on Sunday, at a point where Hibs were trying to push down that side with Eli Yuan. That came on and they were trying to get the ball to him, and he was just so comfortable in there. This isn't a bother to me. I can handle this. Now, if you think about Lyon on Thursday, who've got the likes of Zaha, who've got Makatadze, who's got Cherky, you've got, Lacazette, they've got pace to burn up front, and on the wings they're particularly strong. So it's a real question for Philippe Clement, because controversially, and I don't want to open up a massive can of worms, but if James Tavernier doesn't play well on Thursday night, it's more or less another nail in people saying that he's not good enough to be there and he shouldn't be there. Does he then decide that, up against Zaha, etc., it's going to be too much for him, so I should put in somebody else? It's a really big decision for Philippe Clement. He needs to be brave. And I talked about this on our show with Chris, where we talked about Lyon and things like that. I'm not sure that Philippe Clement did Nico Raskin, Ross McCausland, etc., any favours on Sunday by just giving 45 and whipping them off when there were others. If you're looking for a degree of consistency, and this is why I bring this up, regarding Sterling, you need to allow them to flourish. You can't give them 45 minutes here and there and whip them off, and then you don't see them again for 6 weeks. Or Kieran Dowell comes in for one, don't see him for 3 weeks, comes in for another. There needs to be a degree of consistency around the time and the games you're giving these guys, which goes to Sterling as well. He signed a contract. He's your future. Where's he best playing at, Joshua? That's
right
where why am I moving him everywhere else to suit somebody else that's maybe not of the future and the level that we need to be? So Philippe Clement is maybe at a bit of a crossroads where he needs to be fair not only to the players but also to the team as well. Who's best for these positions? And go from there. I thought, genuinely, just to slightly go back to it, the decisions for halftime substitutions on Sunday completely wrong and cost us control of the game. And at that point, I think he's then chasing with other substitutions, which didn't really come through. We were very fortunate that we defended well enough to get away with winning on Sunday, which is a bigger thing. But I would just like to see Philippe Clement, and it's a really question I would like to ask him. And it would be difficult to articulate it. You're probably better than roughly me going, I feel that you were a bit unfair to the players on Sunday. How can you ask for consistency if you're not giving them the proper opportunity? So it'd be interesting to ask him, not to explain, but ask him his rationale behind substitutions and things like that. What were they not doing that you wanted them off? Was it pre-planned, etc.? And that goes back to the Sterling thing in a wee bit of a wider point of, if you've signed him in a new contract, etc., play him where you see his future being, which for me is at right back. You've already said right back. So a bit of a long-winded answer there.
No, I take it. I know. I think you're right because Clement, obviously, he's a stickler for saying to the sports scientist, the background team, how much can this player play? And people can say, managers shouldn't do that. Of course they should, to a degree. Of course they should take that into consideration. Otherwise, you're just going to injure players. But it's getting that balance with team selection. And does he need to have a stronger starting 11? And why then is there not consistency? Why is there not rotation in an area like right back where he said there's going to be rotation? And I think it would help James Tavernier as well. If Rangers are going to play over 50 games this season, there's no reason you can't have a rotation option there, especially for Sterling, given the fact that he's probably, arguably, if you look at the minutes he played last season, is he ready to start 50 games? Maybe not, but maybe next season he will be. Clement said that this pre-season, I'm pretty sure he'd done 2 or 3 times his normal load in pre-season, so he's clearly building up. Players need consistency to get over injury issues, and they need a consistent manager, a consistent training plan, a consistent style of play, as we've covered before. So there's no reason there shouldn't be rotation in that area, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow against Lyon. But Stevie, it's press conference day. We're going to get up there pretty soon. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Thanks to Stevie for joining us too. If you've not caught up on his show with Chris, you can do so on the YouTube channel as well. Remember, if you join our YouTube channel, you get all these videos early, 3 to 5 a week. We'll be back tomorrow morning, Derek and Chris, I believe, to talk you through all the latest Rangers news and react to yesterday's, or today's at that point, press conference as well, looking ahead to a big match against Lyon at Ibrox in the Europa League. But until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.